period. I think we got it now. The public comment period will be upcoming in a few minutes. For community members who are here in person, please complete a speaker's card and hand it to the staff. For members who wish to phone in comments, please give a call to area code 818-238-3335. And the callers who are in the queue will be placed in a queue until all in-person comments have been received. So if you're in the audience this evening and you have a card in, you speak first, and those who call in will speak following that. And this evening, Commissioner Habakobian will lead us in the flag salute. Oh, okay. Could we do roll call, please?
Chair Chapman?
Here.
Commissioner Coombs?
Present.
Commissioner Elman? Commissioner Feruzin is absent. Commissioner Hakobian? Commissioner Liu? Commissioner Turner? Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Would you please remain standing for just a few moments? I wonder if we could take a few moments for a moment of silence here for the two officers that were killed in El Monte recently. Our thoughts are with their family. Thank you. Start off, we have commissioner announcements and reporting out by commission subcommittees. And Commissioner Coombs, would you like to start out?
Thank you, if I may. Thank you for holding that moment of silence for the two El Monte officers. Just a couple things I wanted to report on, and some of this is based on some conversations outside of the meeting with members of the public and some activities that we've been involved in as well. So the two El Monte officers that died in the line of duty yesterday, June 14th, it involved a domestic violence call that also included an illegally possessed firearm. And many of us are also aware that there is social media recirculation on May 25th of a domestic violence situation that first came to our attention actually in 2021. Recently, the Burbank Domestic Violence Task Force met to address this topic. While the Commission does not have the authority to address active investigations, we did extensively address law enforcement responses to domestic violence situations in our November 17th, 2021 meeting, and that video is available online. I just wanted to make sure that the public was aware of that. I also want to just report I appreciate the subcommittee work and the outside preparation that commissioners have been doing for our meetings. And as a reminder that while we do have to limit our outside collaboration to less than 4 commission members, up to 3 of us can work on projects outside of the meetings in compliance with the Brown Act. The department also is available to us, just like the public, to ask questions, and we can obtain information for some of that subcommittee work as we need it. Some of that will be shared tonight. And the department has been very supportive in helping us prepare those materials, so thank you for that. Last item I just wanted to report on is I'm participating with Commissioners Elman and Hakobian in Community Academy number 37 on Thursday evenings. And appreciation to Detective Peltier, Sergeant Feckety, and Officer Hartunian as our guides, as well as the attending community members who we are getting to know there.
Good, thank you. Do we have any other? Commissioner Habakobian?
Thank you, Commissioner Chapman. I also want to report out on Thursday, May 19th at 7 p.m. I was invited to the Race Relay Community Discussion at the Buena Vista Library. I joined the BHRC with Councilmember Bob Frutos and Councilmember Sharon Springer in a discussion about race, and it was It was really interesting, it was really heartwarming, and also very eye-opening. A lot of volunteers speaking about their individual experiences and how how they were affected and have been affected in the community, and it was just a really great conversation. And on Thursday, June 2nd, was the first class for the BPD Community Academy. Just to echo Commissioner Coombs' words, thank you, Officer Renee Hartunian and Detective Krista Peltier and Sergeant Feckety for the class. It's really, very, very informative, and I think it's a really special class. And on Tuesday, June 7th, I attended the Burbank Vigil for Victims of Gun Violence. A lot of great speakers came out from the community, from the school board, from our senator's office, as well as our assembly member. And a lot of great speeches were held, and great for raising awareness on gun violence. And on Thursday, June 2nd, it was our second Community Academy class. Shout out to Judge Ronald S. Cohen. It was very, very informative. It was a great class. Taught us about the justice system and the court system as well. And lastly, yesterday, Tuesday, June 14th at 4 p.m., I went to a meeting at West Coast Customs with the group Together We Can, with Lisa Martinez and Yolanda Wu. We met with Dana Big Dane Florence. He represented Ryan. I believe his last name is Freddie Longas. He was not in attendance, but it was further in the conversation for doing a PSA. What was really great is the community should know that the West Coast Customs is going to be donating a lot of their production, their video cameras, et cetera, and they're going to be doing the editing, and they're going to be donating this to the community. And further discussions will be had, but we're definitely in the progress of making this come to light. And lastly, again, to echo everyone, my condolences to the officers that were lost. I can't imagine being in a situation like that, being put in a situation like that when I have to respond to something like that. And the condolences to their family and to all the PDs all across the nation.
Good, thank you. Do we have anyone else? All right. Let's move on to oral communications. We have one card here from Tamala Takahashi. Good evening. Good evening.
Good evening. Get my notes up. Okay, thank you. All right. Good evening, Commission Chair and Commission members, Chief, and staff. My name is Tamala Takahashi, Burbank resident. I would like to speak on a topic I have brought to you before, the Burbank Met team and unarmed and plainclothes responses to non-criminal 911 calls with the Met ban. There was a recent study done providing more data on non-police responses to 911 calls that I'd like to share. Since its inception in 2019, the Denver Star van has been a success and continues to be a success. I brought it up as a model in previous meetings, and I appreciate your having looked into this program. For those who may not have seen the commission been on that commission at that time, the Star van is a program in Denver that responds to certain 911 calls with one EMT and one mental health professional instead of uniformed officers. In the last year, based on the recent data in the study, the STAR responses had a significant effect on low-level crime rates, reducing it by 34% in Denver. The study also interestingly found that it lowered response costs. Fewer resources were needed to respond to calls, less time was spent on each call, and fewer arrests were made to incur arrest costs. In addition to this specific study, there was also a longer range and broader Stanford study done. It looked at Denver, New York, Austin, San Francisco, California, and Washington, D.C. programs. Denver's Star Van unarmed civilian health first model fared the best with better outcomes. For example, the study calculated that the direct cost of STAR responding to these calls in Denver came to $151 per response on average, which is 4 times less than the estimated average $646 per standard police response. I recognize that we are not Denver. The author of the study, Thomas D., says this is not something that every 911 system should have. This reform requires thoughtful and detailed implementation, from training people to field 911 calls to hiring the right kind of mental health professionals, etc. For us here in Burbank, I believe it is worth looking into using our stretched police resources more efficiently and seeing how we can use such civilian-trained responses to minor calls such as inebriation, erratic behavior, and other 911 calls that does not indicate that a crime is being or has been committed. We can use the incoming Met van as an opportunity to do a pilot program, perhaps partnering with Street Plus and Fire EMTs. If there is an opportunity for a safe, healthy response that could save us money and resources, I think it's worth a try. I'm providing a handout to you with 2 links and some data. I hope that you will reconsider your position on sending armed police to respond with the Met van instead. And also that you consider becoming an early connection with the incoming 988 mental health emergency line. That's countrywide. And to continue to find innovative ways to reduce the need to cite and arrest. And since I have a second, I'm also in the Police Community Academy, and I appreciate BPD offering this academy. Thank you for your time and consideration. Have a great rest of your meeting.
Great, thank you. I have a question right off. Did everybody get a copy of this handout? Okay. There we go, it's coming around. Do we have any response by the commissioners? I thought so. Commissioner Coombs?
Thank you for bringing this information to us. In addition to the Met van that's being developed within Burbank, I just want to acknowledge that there is some pilots that are happening in Los Angeles County that we can also take a look at. I got a chance to meet, I believe it was the LA County Fire's 77th Division, if I get that right. Just met with them. They're launching a van similar to what you're identifying in each of the 5 supervisorial districts. So we should have the opportunity in the very near future to take a look at real-time data in Los Angeles County about how the 911 system is sending out non-law enforcement vans. It's tied to fire and it's tied to the 911 system.
No callers for this evening. Okay, all right, thank you. I think we'll move on to the approval of the minutes from the May 18th meeting. Has everybody gotten a copy and read the minutes?
Chair,
Commissioner Coombs?
I will motion to accept the minutes as written.
All righty, do we have a second? Commissioner Elman? All of those in favor? Unanimous? Okay. Good, so the minutes are approved. All right. The items of business, update, discussion, and recommendations, if any, on grant-funded procedural justice training. Why did you stop me? Being presented by Lieutenant Derek Green. Good evening,
Good
Lieutenant.
evening, Commissioners. It's nice to see everybody in person. It's been a while for me, at least. Yes, thank you. My name is Derek Green. I'm a lieutenant. I oversee the Community Outreach and Personnel Services Bureau right now. And I was asked to do an update on some training that we have had recently in regards to procedural justice and strategic communication. But what I wanted to start off with is just providing some context to explain how we got here, why we're here, and provide a bit of a roadmap of a journey that we've been on to become a progressive law enforcement agency and do better all around. So this journey actually began back in 2014 when President Barack Obama signed an order that established a task force to develop the report on 21st century policing. And this was largely in response to civil unrest in Ferguson, Missouri, that was a result of an officer-involved shooting that led to the death of Michael Brown. The task force was comprised of people of a variety of professions. So you had educators, you had civil rights activists, you had law enforcement professionals. And the final report was released in 2015. And the report was focused on improving police-community relations and taking a different approach to law enforcement by instilling a different mindset, if you will, one of a guardian as opposed to a warrior. The report was organized under 6 topics that they refer to as pillars, and each of those were organized with recommendations and action items of how to implement these strategies in law enforcement agencies across the country. So each of those pillars were previously introduced in great detail at Police Commission meetings, all 6 of them as a matter of fact. But I wanted to reintroduce them tonight just to give us the foundation for the training we're about to discuss. Burbank Police Department immediately embraced the report on 21st century policing and immediately began implementing a lot of the recommendations within our organization. In fact, the task force report was so important that it has been part of the required study material for all promotional exams in our police department since it was released in 2015. So that tells you how important we feel that the recommendations are and the report itself is. So I want to fast forward to 2020 and the events in Minneapolis. Long before that incident, the Burbank Police Department had already embraced a lot of the recommendations on improving police-community relations and police legitimacy and procedural justice, and began to implement several organizational changes. I'm just going to highlight a few of those. This is an exhaustive list, but it certainly are the highlights. Since 2016, the Burbank Police Department has been recognized as an accredited agency by the Commission of Accreditation for Law Enforcement Agencies, and that is voluntary compliance with over 480 law enforcement standards. So it's not easy to attain that accreditation. Burbank Police adopted law enforcement best practices, industry standards, policies, and procedures with the assistance of the Lexipol Corporation, who created a standardized set of policies and procedures for law enforcement agencies in the United States. We also implemented an external oversight review board to examine our investigations into allegations of discrimination or racial bias, uses of force, vehicle pursuits, and the application of deadly force, which is the Office of Independent Review. We established an audits and inspections team responsible to conduct audits of essentially every facet of our organization to ensure accountability and make sure that we're doing things the right way every time. We also have developed a robust social media presence, which complements our efforts to expand our dialogue with the community. We developed an entire section of our website devoted entirely to professional accountability for transparency, so people can go on and read each and every one of our policies, our complaint summaries each year, our community surveys, the list goes on and on. We also have increased our recruitment efforts in hopes of recruiting a police force that is more representative of the demographic composition of our city. And we're also in constant pursuit of the latest and most contemporary training programs for all of our personnel so that we can continue to be one step ahead of the rest, which is where Burbank Police has always been. So with that, I'm going to get into a brief slideshow presentation which kind of gets us to where we are today. And I'm going to talk about some training that we've been doing since actually back in 2020 that promotes trust, transparency, and accountability. This training is part of the Why Did You Stop Me training that we have mentioned prior. And back to the task force report on 21st century policing, one of the main themes of that is procedural justice. And procedural justice concerns the fairness and transparency of the process by which decisions are made. Basically, it's the foundation for trust and legitimacy of our judicial system. Procedural justice is broken down under 4 principles. And those principles are neutrality, which is an expectation of the public that law enforcement is unbiased and transparent. Also, providing a voice to community members so that we can listen to their needs and expectations. Respect, which simply means that law enforcement should be treating everyone with respect and dignity. And trustworthiness. Trustworthiness is based on the motives, and those motives of police officers, that they are made in good faith and in turn earning the trust of society. The other theme of the task force report is police legitimacy. Police legitimacy basically defines the belief that police should be allowed to exercise the authority we've been given so that we can maintain social order, manage conflicts, and solve problems. That's what we signed up to do, and we are the last line of defense between good and bad. But legitimacy is judged by the public, and it's judged in 3 dimensions. First and foremost, public trust and confidence. That is the hope that police are honest and acting in the best interest of the community. Also, legitimacy needs the willingness of residents to defer to the law and accept the authority of police. And finally, a belief that our actions, police officers' actions, are morally justified and appropriate given the circumstances at hand. So, we committed to a very aggressive training program for our personnel when it came to police legitimacy and procedural justice. We wanted to make sure that our staff was being trained adequately and appropriately to mitigate liability and also improve our trust in the community and our relationship and partnerships with community members. So our primary mission in this commitment was to participate in contemporary external law enforcement training programs focused on enhancing police-community relations and public trust. The Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Assistance Grant Program provides grant funding to local law enforcement agencies that support all components of the criminal justice system. In 2021, the Burbank Police Department applied for a grant opportunity and was awarded $16,808 towards training. Now, the training and the grant aligned with a recommendation by the Bureau of Justice Assistance to seek training specific to promoting trust, transparency, and accountability between law enforcement and the public. So it was a win-win for us because that also aligned with our mission. Our goals in securing the grant and moving forward was continued staff development at all ranks, so not just the patrol officers, but also sergeants and lieutenants and captains. Through grant-funded, externally facilitated training related to procedural justice and police legitimacy. We also had goals of emphasizing strategic communication, increasing cultural competency, building transparency, gaining a better understanding of implicit bias and the unintentional actions that affect judgments, decisions, and behaviors, de-escalation techniques, and providing community members with a voice and a forum to engage in discussions with us, the police, about fears, perceptions, and assumptions. That's when we found Jason Lehman of Why'd You Stop Me? Why'd You Stop Me is a nonprofit organization run by a former Long Beach police officer. Prior to the grant in 2020, a select group of 25 police officers from Burbank received an 8-hour course, California Post certified, on community policing in the 21st century. All of the theories and recommendations that were contained in that task force report. In 2021, all supervisors, including myself, attended an 8-hour supervisory leadership course based on community policing in the 21st century. Once the grant was secured, we contacted Jason Lehman. We inquired about a program that would fit the criteria required for the grant, but also something different than we had already done, and something that we could provide not only to us as police officers, but to our community members, provide that forum for us to listen to their ideas, to their concerns, to their fears, to their perceptions. So, with that grant money, we adopted the Application of Procedural Justice and Strategic Communication course, which is a 4-hour training course that was provided to all police officers and detectives and newly promoted supervisors, and also included additional community dialogue sessions. So this is a picture that I took on Saturday morning. I know it's not easy to see, but this is a dialogue circle. This is over at the Boys and Girls Club in Burbank, a new facility for them. It's a beautiful facility. And this is a combination of a facilitator, an ordained minister and reverend, 4 police officers not in uniform, and I think 5 community members was the final count. We were expecting 7, but 2 people unfortunately were not able to make it. On Saturday morning, the first session of the community dialogue was held, and it was focused on building relationships and also addressing community members' concerns. It went very well. The feedback from the officers that participated, the community members, and also the facilitators, everybody had nothing but good things to say. We had breakfast. We kind of had small talk before things got underway. I'm not going to get into great detail as to the program because I've been involved in planning and executing this. I was excused from the actual setting and dialogue session because the purpose was to have these officers in tennis shoes and T-shirts and jeans and show that they are also community members. Remove the authoritative presence in a uniform and a vest with the gun belt and just have them sit down with a cup of coffee and a breakfast burrito, because that's what we served, and have dialogue and have a conversation with these individuals and show that they also have kids and wives and brothers and sisters and a home and a community that they want to keep safe. So following this first session, we are going to move into the second phase, which is a ride-along program for all of the participants. And they'll be partnered up with an officer based on their availability. They provided their choice as to what time and day of the week works for them, and we are going to facilitate a ride-along for them for about 4 hours for them to go out and have conversation with the officer that they're connected with, go on calls for service, pick their brain, ask questions, and see what it's all about. And it appears to me that none of the involved or the participants have ever been on a ride-along, so this will be new to them. And the third phase of this, all of these individuals that you see in the photo are going to return in August after having done the ride-along, after having had the breakfast and the conversation initially and breaking the ice. The officers will now be in police uniform, and there will be a third dialogue session. And the goal of the final dialogue will be to discuss if and how opinions and perceptions may have changed since the original June session, and expand upon some of the other discussion points and topics that were brought up prior. And that is an update on the training of Why'd You Stop Me? So I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have at this time.
Good. Thank you, Lieutenant Green. Do any of the commissioners have any questions here or comments they'd like to make? Commissioner Habakobian?
Thank you, Lieutenant Green, for that presentation. I'm sure the current community would be curious to know, and I love the fact that there was a very organic conversation happening about the community and the community concerns. And what are some of the concerns that you can come back with and explain to us what those are?
So I am not privy to that information, and it has not been provided to me for a reason. Right now, that's being kept between the participants that were in the dialogue session. I did not conduct any type of follow-up with the officers that were involved to find out what was discussed. When this is all said and done, Mr. Lehman and his company will provide a synopsis and summary encompassing everything that was completed, and we will have a report as to what you're asking for. But right now, to keep things private between those individuals that participated, and that's actually the way this is kind of designed to go. I don't have that information.
Commissioner Liu?
Presentation. Have a couple of questions about the community dialogue circle itself and just the structure. How were the community members selected? Was it a self-selection, an application process, and was there any kind of structure in which, it was guaranteed to select people with different points of views and experiences in the community?
So we were given some basic direction on who we should be looking to select, and then we were also given direction on who we could not select. So we could not select anybody that was connected in any way to the police department. These needed to be community members that, whether positive or negative perceptions of law enforcement in general or the Burbank police specifically, we were looking for individuals that had a voice, that wanted to express their concerns, perceptions, whether good or bad, but they could not have a nexus to the police department. That is also the reason we had to select a venue that was off campus and not tied to the police department as well. It had to be a neutral location. It's also why I was not allowed to kind of be there and participate, because we wanted to kind of keep it sterile in the sense that everybody coming into the room, nobody knew each other as far as the community members and the officers went, and nobody kind of knew. The theory behind the street clothes was to not know who the officers are in the room, Now, I know that, with the crew cut haircuts, and it's not hard to tell who the officers are in the room, especially once conversation gets underway. And they were told if you're asked if you're a police officer, you're to tell them, yes, I am. You're not undercover. But the theory behind it is that everybody's kind of in there as a community member, not knowing who the law enforcement officers are. So the selection process wasn't easy. It was actually, we had some trouble finding people, and then once we found individuals, we found it difficult to kind of convince them to participate. We gave them the information that we had. A few were very excited about it. Others, it took some coercing, and at the end of the day, they were very happy with the fact that they participated. We did have two individuals that unfortunately did not show up, and these two were actually community members that we came across in the field during a field contact. And they felt at the time that they were profiled during a contact, and it didn't lead to any misconduct or an internal formal complaint. But as we do with everything, we conducted an administrative review, which involved bringing these individuals in and having a conversation with them. And by the end of that conversation, they were very, very pleased with how responsive we were to the situation and their concerns. And we had told them, it was when we were in the planning stage for this training, we had told them about this training and asked them if it would be something they would like to participate in. And they were very excited about it. So we actually kept them on our contact list until it was time to recruit. And they were expected to be there Saturday. Unfortunately, neither one of the two were able to make it when all was said and done. We're hoping to maybe reach out to them in the future for something similar. But it was not an easy task. And you're asking how we chose people. So these are individuals that we have met before in the community, either at community events that we have come in contact with, here at commission or council meetings. I think if you saw some of the names of the people that were included, you would recognize at least one or two. So that was kind of how the selection process went down.
Got it, thank you. Just to be clear, was there any kind of like public social media, or was this a?
No, so we were
direct
told
outreach?
specifically not to advertise this and promote it. We were encouraged to hand select individuals, and it wasn't individuals that we felt should be there because they're pro-police, or we were just looking for individuals that we felt were going to come in and provide us with constructive dialogue and constructive feedback. And actually, negative perceptions are a good thing because it allows us to take a look in the mirror and relate to what they are saying. We're not looking for kudos from everybody in the room. We're just not. That's not what this is designed to do. This is designed to identify concerns, fears, and perceptions and allow us to make changes.
Thank you. So I have one and a half more questions. So for the two individuals that were not able to make it the first time, is it that they have to kind of participate through all 3 points in time so they cannot be asked to come join the latter 2 sessions?
Yes and no. So yes, it has been made clear that all of the people that participated in the first dialogue session would come back for the ride-along and then the third to close it out, as well as the officers. I need to discuss logistics with Jason because I would like to, at the end of the day, I would like to include those 2 gentlemen. They were a big part of this, and I think they were excited to participate. And I don't know exactly what happened as to why they weren't there, but yes, we will be reaching out to them and hopefully be able to get them into the ride-along and then the third dialogue session.
That's great. Thank you. And then final question, how was the discussion structured, or was it really kind of a free room to speak, for example? Were there topics that were set in the beginning to kind of strike up conversations? And second part of my question is, when it all is said and done and the report comes out, what are kind of the next steps, or what are the thoughts of sharing these results and training approaches with the rest of BPD?
Well, absolutely. That's part of the transparency. This is something that we want to share with everybody because not everybody in the organization was involved in the community portion of this. There will be a lot of officers that are involved in the ride-along part that were not involved in the dialogue. That'll be an additional dialogue session for them, 4 hours worth, if the community member wants to stay for that long. But no, we will be happy to report back on not only what concerns were brought up and what was addressed, but also how the program went, whether we felt it was beneficial. There are other similar programs out there that we want to explore down the road. This is a theme now. Our profession has changed, and these are necessities in our training program. As important as it is to go out and train on learning how to drive a police car, this is equally as important, if not more important. So we'll be happy to share those results.
Is this kind of a program that you're thinking once the results come out and it feels like kind of a pilot program almost in terms of this community, then you'll continue to have them,
Yes.
ongoing?
This particular program, curriculum that we're using right now, it's not only a pilot program for us, but it's also a pilot program for them. They've only done it one other time with Sacramento Police. So it's still in its infancy, and we're working out kinks. I think that if we were to do something similar in the future, I think that we need to get started much earlier on recruiting the community members, because really, although it looked like the room was full, we probably could have used quite a few more people. And then the other question you had was as far as how things played out and how things were introduced. I don't know. I do know that there were some activities in the room. There was a board game type setup on the floor. So I know they did some role playing, some activities. I don't know the specifics of the discussions and what was discussed in the room itself. But I know it was very interactive.
Thank you.
Commissioner Elman.
Good evening, Lieutenant.
Good evening.
What about the selection process for the officers who were involved? How did that work?
So that was equally as difficult. A lot of challenges with staffing. We are conducting this on a Saturday morning. We were limited in staff pool to choose from. We wanted to have a supervisor. Unfortunately, the supervisor that we were planning on had last-minute plans and had to leave town. So we resulted with 2 detectives and 2 police officers. And we felt that the group of officers that we assigned to this were very, very good for the spot. And it was volunteer-based. We did not force anybody to do this.
Commissioner Turner.
Hi, Lieutenant Green.
Hi.
Thank you for providing us with the update regarding Why'd You Stop Me and just the training in general. I do have, I'm just curious to know, is there a place or is there a place where we or the public would be able to go to see what the curriculum is exactly, like in terms of, we go over within the implicit bias, like we go over anti-racism, we go over historical references regarding, Burbank's past and those types of elements. Is that
You mean specific to like a syllabus for the class?
exactly?
So that's something that would be a request of Jason Lehman with Why'd You Stop Me. I don't know what his rules are for releasing his syllabus and his lesson plans. I know that this, like everything else, is competitive. It's a business he's running. It's a nonprofit, but it's a competitive marketplace right now. So he has not released that to us, nor I don't believe we've asked for it. But that is something that he is very responsive to email. He travels a lot. We would have had him here tonight, but he's actually in Sacramento, and he could not be here. But he is responsive with email, and I can get you his email address if you'd like to ask him. At the very least, I think you would get a pretty good summary from him as to what each of the different classes he puts on focuses on. But yeah.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes, I think it would be great to kind of get more information on terms of like what specifically is provided within each lesson, so we can kind of have an idea of what incoming officers and current
Sure.
officers are learning when it comes to like incidents related to George Floyd or
Yes.
Michael Brown, et cetera, to be able to have more of a reference in terms of what's being taught, I guess. But thank you. I would
Thank you.
appreciate. I would love to.
Sure, I'll get it to you.
Email. Okay,
Yeah,
thank
You're
you.
welcome. Thank you.
Commissioner Coombs?
Thank you. Lieutenant Green, thank you for bringing this information. In addition to the information about the program, you shed some initial comments before that as well. I want to come back to that in a minute. I appreciated that. I also wanted to thank Commissioner Turner specifically for asking for this item to come back to the table. I think it was you that asked to agendize this. So a couple of things about the first is a comment, actually, and it's based on what Commissioner Turner just said, is it is a business, and in my field we're also going through a lot of this. I was actually just in a training this morning on racialized trauma, and one of the things that's challenging is it's a business, it's proprietary, the material, but we're also talking about trying to transform culture. So the more we can make a lot of this information readily available and public to everybody, the better. So I just want to put that out there, and wherever the department's able to do that, or any of our institutions are able to do that, I really want to encourage that. Couple questions about the program. Were there any outcomes built into the training? And specifically, was there any way to assess or measure opinion or perspective before entering the program, and then a way to measure it after completing the program?
Before and after, no, but there were each of the sessions that I showed, 2020, 21, and 22, there was an internal survey that he implemented and conducted of all the attendees. Not every attendee responded, but he has provided those survey results to the department.
Okay.
And there is quite a bit of feedback on there.
Yeah, I want to encourage that if we can, because it just kind of helps to show as an institution where we're moving to, because there's the policies and procedures of the institution, and then there's opinion. And really, when we're talking about transforming culture, we're really talking about trying to transform opinion and how we carry ourselves on a day-to-day basis, as opposed to just making sure we're following policy. So I just wanted to suggest that. You talked about the listening circles, and I'm wondering, beyond the training, is there an opportunity for the department to continue with some form of a listening circle, that whether that be proprietary or it's something that the department be interested in developing, to allow ongoing dialogue? A lot of the community events that are happening right now, which are fantastic, create a lot of great opportunities to interact with law enforcement. The opportunities that we've had through the community the community academy, and just the availability of the department to us has been extremely helpful. I'm wondering if there's a way to build in and formalize ongoing dialogue circles between officers and community members, and have something on an ongoing basis.
Yeah, certainly, and it's not something that we haven't done in the past. We have hosted meetings in the past within the community at churches and other locations. Some had a theme to them because they were in response to an ongoing issue, Magnolia Park burglaries, or issues within the school district, where we had a town hall meeting at the adult school, or we just do it to do it. Yes, we've had merchant seminar, and I know what you're describing is more of like a conversational tone where there's no agenda and people come in and just have a conversation and maybe have the officers in plain clothes so that you can see that they look just like normal human beings themselves, with the crew cut hair. But yeah, no, absolutely. And although it's not always obvious, a lot of the things we do are kind of for that purpose. So our community survey that we recently did,
Right.
that we do every other year, that is a form of listening. And we do take that report very serious, and we look at each and every comment, upwards of 500 to 600 that comes through. The chief of police and his staff examine each of those comments, and we respond to those comments, not directly to the respondent because it was anonymous, but we respond in organizational change and taking a look at what needs to be looked at and fixing what needs to be fixed. But yes, the community meetings, those are opportunities for people to come out and engage in a conversation without an agenda. The coffee events, things of that nature. And then our social media. Social media is not always our friend, and there's a lot of misinformation on social media, and we have to pick our battles with that, because if we took the time to engage in an argument with each and every person that provides misinformation to the public, we would lose our minds, and we just don't want to fight that fight. But what we do use social media for is to engage in healthy conversation, whether it's a traffic complaint or a complaint about an unhoused individual. We're very responsive to those things. And yes, so we're always looking for ways to communicate, to listen. I like what you're saying in more of just a no agenda, kind of sit around a table and just talk about whatever anybody wants to bring up and see where it leads. So that's something we should definitely look at for the future.
Thank you. And that might be something that we can maybe even help collaborate with and
Sure.
help develop. These couple questions that are adjacent to the presentation that started at the beginning. The first, you mentioned the External Oversight Review Board. I don't want to go into a full discussion of it, but I'm wondering if you could give a little bit more information about that body and how that body functions?
Yeah, so they get a sampling of investigations that we conduct into uses of force. There's other types of investigations that they get all reports on, so officer-involved shootings, things of more serious nature. And they examine not whether we did right or wrong in the moment. They examine more how the investigation was conducted, and they provide feedback to us and basically identify missteps and recommendations to improve in the future. And I'll allow the chief to expand on that since he works directly with them. Again, that's more of the oversight board meets directly with the command staff, so I'm not privy to a lot of the discussions that are had. I do read the reports that come out, and those are readily available on our website as well. We post all those under the professional accountability. But Chief, did you want to expand on the OIR?
So one thing we need to know tonight, Gina O is not here. Our city attorney is not here. So I'm texting to make sure that we can pursue this topic or if we're going to agendize it. So when I provide my chief's comments, I'm going to talk about OIR, and I can give you an overview of what they do, but the joint session will talk about that and how that looks for this body and city council when you're together in the same room. So we may want to agendize OIR before the actual joint session so that you have a good foundation of what they do, what they're looking at. And I would also encourage to look at past OIR reports and our responses.
Appreciate that, Chief. I actually think you just answered the question because I'd heard earlier about an External Oversight Review Board, and it sounded like something different from OIR. It sounds like those are one and the same.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Great.
yes,
Perfect.
yes.
Perfect. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
So we're familiar with that as well. So perfect. Last quick question, and this
Sure.
is just a general question related to the training and how this is being implemented. And again, in my area, in my field, we struggle with this as well. So this is not unique to law enforcement. But is there space and opportunity for officers to have candid, hard conversations with each other and have the ability to get information and input to help transform the culture? So there's the discussion of Why'd You Stop Me, the program, trying to expose people to that. There's trying to change the culture itself. But is there an opportunity for officers to have small group or private candid conversations to be able to explore and internally help change some of that culture as well?
Absolutely, and I think Sergeant Feckley would agree. I think these conversations are already happening, to be honest. And if not in the formal setting of a classroom, they're happening in police cars. They're happening between FTOs, field training officers, and their trainees. And these are important conversations, and they occur between supervisors and subordinates, and they're conversations that need to be had. And especially when we're looking at a situation that requires some corrective action, where we could have done better. Those are conversations that need to be had. They're not always comfortable, and they're not always popular. But I, as a supervisor, have had those conversations with officers, and at the end of the day, it's for the better of society, it's for the better of the organization, and it's for us to improve and do better next time.
So on topic, but I'm picking a stretch here because when Lieutenant Green talked about the president's 21st century policing, Pillar 6 is officer wellness. So that is another topic I would encourage you to agendize because we are aggressively pursuing a wellness program in the settings that you're talking about where we can just sit around and kick around back and forth as far as what worked, what didn't work, and how does it look, and how do you manage your career, manage yourself, manage your family, what the frustrations are to be better and to be energized, I think would be a great agendized item.
Great. Thank you.
Quick question. For the report that actually comes out, and thank you, Commissioner Coombs, for chatting through the potential kind of, Thank you, Commissioner Coombs, for talking through the potential next steps in relation to these small circles. For the report that comes out, is that something that can be made available to the public to understand what topics were discussed? And then potentially, is there a way to leverage the conversations and topics that were discussed to create kind of more structured environments in which officers can converse with each other? Because I would imagine that would be a great, cost-efficient way to continue to leverage the learnings from these community circles.
Yeah, well, you bring up cost, and obviously this was part of a grant. So not only did the training have to meet the criteria defined by the grant, but also there was a cap on what we could spend. So we had to kind of make it all work. We wanted to make sure that the detectives were included in this training initially based on the grant funding and the classroom size that we were quoted. We were going to have to excuse the detectives, but the good news is that's no longer the case. But yes, I don't know what this report's going to look like. So what I've been told is that they're going to furnish basically a end of the program type synopsis of everything so that we can assess it, see what worked well, what can be improved, whether it was beneficial, and also we would like to know what was discussed in these dialogue sessions and have the officers report out on that. So I don't know what the report will look like, but we would be happy to share the results in some form or fashion, whether it be a presentation to you like I'm doing tonight, or having maybe the officers that were involved come and share their experience, or even the community members to come in and share their experience and give you some insight as to what was discussed. I think that would be, hearing it directly from them would be a lot more personal than reading it in a PDF of some sort. So, but yes, we will be happy to furnish the encapsulate everything in a final summary for you.
Excellent, thank you.
Good. You'd mentioned early, and the chief had also mentioned too, the 21st century report on modern policing. It is a phenomenal document that was created by people from all over the country in all sorts of positions, whether it be from the public, from the police departments. It was a long time coming, and it is pretty much like the gold standard of best practices in policing. And it's something that our department laudably embrace. And it's an important thing that people should be familiar with. If they get a chance and want to take a look at it, it's free, it's online. Just Google it and look it up. It's a bit of a read, but it is well worth time reading it.
I will tell a true story. So when I was studying the task force report for the lieutenant's exam, when you read it, it can be very overwhelming, and it has a lot of information, and it has a lot of recommendations. And when I simplified it, the way I did it was I was reading these recommendations, and it was this long-winded description of why law enforcement should be doing X, Y, Z, and I started saying, well, wait a minute. That's the simplified version of that is Office of Independent Review. We do that, right? It's a fancy way of saying external oversight. So I was amazed at how much of that report was right under my nose, and we were doing every single day at the police department. And when I put those concepts together, it was much easier to understand for the exam. So, but that.
Do we have that on our website? Do we have that on our website?
The report.
Yeah, the 21st century.
We will tonight, sir.
Yeah, we'll get it
A link. That'd be great. Great. Cool. Thank you, Lieutenant.
Thank you.
I think you did a great job.
Thank you very much. Good night.
We're going to move on to discussion and recommendations for themes and topics for inclusion on the Police Commission calendar as a dashboard for annual follow-up discussions.
Great.
And Commissioner Coombs, do you have something to say
Thank
there?
you, Chair Chapman.
Thank you.
I have, actually, this was prepared by Sergeant Feckety, and I really appreciate him putting this together for us. This is a copy, this is the calendar that is currently being used by the Burbank Police Department for activities that they're planning and that's on their radar throughout the year. we opted at the last meeting to carry this over to today's meeting as opposed to work on this as a subcommittee outside. And so this is just a start. This is not necessarily, a couple different things. This is, we can't and won't try to cover, I hope, every single item that's on this calendar. That would be too difficult. But what we may want to do based on our last conversation here is to go ahead and put together a calendar of topics that we can prepare for in conjunction with the department in advance on an annual basis. And then from there, we can also add additional agenda items for pressing items that come up in the public, in the media, incidents, that type of a thing. But I wanted to share this with all of you. And again, thank you, Sergeant Peckety, for giving this as a place where we can partner with the department to identify some themes. For how we go through this, Chair, I'm going to recommend that we have an open discussion first to maybe identify and work through what themes we may want to plug into our annual calendar, and then we can narrow it down from there. I've got my own recommendations and comments and everything, but I want to make sure that we hear from everybody here today.
Commissioner Hakobian, do you have any comments here? Or questions? I'll start.
Yeah.
What is it that you're looking at? We have the objects that are, or dates and things that are coming up on the calendar. What are you looking for?
I'm recommending that we identify themes that we want to focus in on so we can prepare as a commission in advance for those meetings. Also allow the department to prepare in advance. So for example, I threw together an example of a subject each month that we may want to focus in on as part of that calendar. Starting, actually just coming up next month, we have a joint meeting with the council. So that's the agenda, that's the item for next month that we want to make sure that we include on that annual calendar. As we go into August, traditionally we have, because of some of the incidents in the community, we may want to focus in on traffic safety as an annual discussion topic at that point. September, with school starting back, we may want to focus in on school safety. October, which is actually National Pedestrian Safety Month, which ties in with the calendar, we may want to focus on that because some of the commissioners, including myself, have concerns about pedestrian safety issues in Burbank. November, I was going to recommend as domestic violence, as a focus on that, because as we go into the holidays, we typically often see an increase, unfortunately, in domestic violence and other issues in the community. December, we're traditionally dark. January, I was going to recommend DUI enforcement. February, homeless engagement, which ties into the homeless the homeless count in LA County. March, I was going to recommend equity in hiring and advancement within the department. April, it's communications. I think it's Communications Center Workers Month, week, something like that. So I was going to recommend identifying that there. May, as we did this year, is focusing on mental health in the department and the community, where we may also want to use that as a specific time to hone in on the wellness programs within the department. And then June, I was going to recommend a year in review. These are just things that I threw out there based on this material, but I want us all to have an opportunity to take a look at this and see what fits for them.
So this is sort of like adjusting how we put things on the agenda rather than shooting from the hip. We're kind of getting it more direction towards the calendar.
You got it. We covered
Excellent.
a lot of topics
Good
this
idea.
past year, which was great, but it sometimes felt like we were flying without a net.
Okay. Commissioner Liu.
Thank you, Commissioner Coombs, for already laying out some great topics by month. In addition to these topics based on these calendar of events, I'm thinking that there are some recurring internal reports or policies and procedures that BPD has. So, for example, the OIR report in the next meeting, we can kind of think about and work with BPD on these recurring events to incorporate agenda items that are follow-ups to them, for example. So I'd imagine that the OIR report will come out with some interesting findings and that we'll have some follow-ups for that. So potentially agendizing the next meeting to have some follow-ups or discussion at the next meeting to have presentations for the meetings following that. Another example is the community survey. I know that it happens once every other year. potentially agendizing, just reporting out on that, but then also thinking about how in the, 6 months to a year ramping up to that, how we as a commission can get involved with BPD as well, and talking through maybe engaging the community on some of the topics that could be included in the survey. So those are just two thoughts, but I'd imagine that there are a lot of other kind of recurring instances such as that in BPD.
Any comments over here?
I'm sorry. Just want to make a suggestion because I'm just kind of formulating in my mind how this is going to work. It seems like for every month that there's a theme that we want to attach an idea to or agenda item to. Is that correct? Just to clarify what we're trying to do. Okay. So I mean, one thing that just kind of came into my mind and something that I've been kind of exposing myself to with the ride-alongs I've been going out with, especially with the gang unit. We do have an issue with gangs in this community, and I think that maybe in November, because I know that we commemorate our fallen officer Matthew Pavelka. Talking about a gang report. That'll be great to see come up. To see what the situation is with the current gangs, and how that's affecting the community. That could be one great suggestion. And let's see. I'm sure more are going to come to my mind, so I'll just jump right in.
Commissioner Elman? How would we like to put this into action?
Well, not to put Commissioner Elman on the spot, but part of the reason we're doing this at the table here as opposed to in subcommittee is it was a request to do that. So I think that's open to the group to find out. I'd love to hear everybody's input on how to put this together.
Well, I'm still trying to figure out the benefit. I mean, structure is good, but in the world we live in today, current events, world events, happen as fast as social media can move it. So I think it's a good framework, but I think we have to keep in a structure of flexibility. When I look at things like New Year's Day or Super Bowl Sunday, 2 different months, it's still the same thing. To me, it's DUI. Those are 2 days people celebrate. So, I think structure is good, but also the having built-in flexibility. And, I would like to discuss that if some event came up, how we can bypass our structure because something more pressing has occurred.
The structure, we still have to maintain the structure of the motion process. So we still have the ability to motion for agenda items for upcoming months. We have some things that are floating out there right now that I know that we want to kind of tie down as to when we want to address them. This should not sidestep that process at all. So there's still the ability to do that, and there's the ability to plan in the future in conjunction with the department and with each other to prepare for topics, for example, just like DUI issues.
You realize you left out National Donut Day.
I might have done that intentionally. Yeah, I think we agree that that's a little wrong.
So I'm thinking one of our committees can investigate this and come up with a proposal for a calendar.
We could, but in a prior meeting, the request was to not do that in committee and to do that as a committee of the whole at a council, at a commission meeting. That's why we're bringing it up this evening and why we've agendized it.
All right.
We had tried to do that.
What, I guess what I'm looking for is, suggestions, you're looking for too.
Yeah.
Is suggestions on how to implement something like this. And once we have that, then we can go ahead and vote on it.
You got it.
I like to, let me throw out a hypothetical. This is our June meeting. Next month is July. What do we envision under this system July's meeting would be like? Just hypothetical.
In this system, we have the joint meeting with the city council and has already identified the review of the OIR report.
Can I derail everything?
Absolutely.
So part of my report out is going to be, the OIR report is going to be moved to September. So this was a request by staff, my boss, because there is a pending report that needs to be presented on the date that we were scheduled to present. And as a body, we graciously said that we would move to September. Behind the scenes, I had to cross-staff with OIR to make sure that they were good with it, because they have other agencies that they work with. So I'll expand upon that when I do my report out. So for July's wide open for you folks. There's nothing on your agenda. There's some discussion points tonight that you could load up. I will remind you, in August, it is mandated training for you, and I will expand upon that when I report out. And also at the beginning of the session, it'll be elections and then your mandated training. And Gina O text me, and I was going to say something. Conceptually, this is great, and having a theme, you can be very nimble moving forward. So if the theme is, and I'll go to Commissioner Elman, New Year's Eve and a Super Bowl Sunday, and there is a DB nexus to Super Bowl Sunday. So as far as what the department's doing, what plans they have, and if something happens and there's an immediate sea change, is that we can pivot, you can pivot, and we can, follow up later. So you have a lot of flexibility here moving forward, but your calendar of events gives you kind of some structure as far as what the department is doing. Like next month, what are you guys doing? What is the organizational priority in addition to working 24/7? So I kind of derailed your plans, but you can make that quick pivot.
Thank you. I actually think, to that point, we generally have 2 to 3 agenda items on each meeting anyway. So if we kind of schedule one point of the agenda as an annual kind of theme per meeting, then that gives us some leeway in seeing how this particular theme has progressed year to year, and have, a benchmark of 12 months prior that we can bench against. But then we still have the 1 or 2 additional agenda items that we can use more flexibly, right? I think that is kind of one area that we could, leave the 1 to 2 additional agenda items for us to discuss and for us to bring up and agendize at meetings prior, but having one topic that we can all look forward to and prepare for in advance, for months in advance even, I think is a good idea. So.
Oh, I'm sorry. Commissioner Hokovian?
Oh, thank you, Commissioner Chapman. So, when it just comes to this calendar, I think this is a really great idea. It really keeps us on course, gives us an idea of what we want to talk about, what we want to discuss. But one thing I would definitely want to add to this, if it'll be okay, is, when it comes to just anything that I try to approach is it meaningful, is it impactful, and what's the purpose? And I think that what we can also do, and I don't know, Chief, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know if this has been done before on a few prior commissions, but like we can create a subcommittee and we can put it on one of the calendar days, and we can, as far as like a community survey that we can do as commissioners, and we can make that a yearly thing, and we can see how that conversation has changed year to year, and I think that would be really impactful as well, because it gives us an idea of what the community feels and thinks about the police department, and then we can see year after year, and it can be a program that we can implement, going forward. So, and I don't know if that's been done before. If that makes any sense.
That's going to be a discussion point with the commission, and that means that there's going to be some heavy lifting that you will have to do, with the understanding that you'll have no staff from us. So, as a commission body, if that is something that you want to agendize, discuss, and implement, that's going to be on you.
I didn't have a well-formed thought on that. I think I like the idea. I think an annual survey just conceptually makes a lot of sense. A lot changes from year to year. I also don't want to be redundant with the BPD's survey, so I think to your point, Commissioner Hokopian, maybe this is something that we can form a subcommittee on to kind of determine what might be the right path forward. Also, we wouldn't have, the leverage of BPD's resources to stand behind the survey that we would put out, and how do we integrate that into BPD? So my comment is, love the idea. I think there is definitely some kind of hashing out as to how best to implement it.
And if I can add, that may also be an example of an area, if we do want to set a generalized schedule for the year, calendar for the year, this would be a perfect example of something that we could add on to an existing meeting or an existing theme as well. So this doesn't rule that out, but we'll definitely, I agree that the idea of doing some additional legwork on this to explore how we would do that, maybe even consider partnering with the department around the existing survey tool that they use. Possibly having an impact on that. That might be an idea as well. But that's a perfect example of where we might choose to agendize that discussion or work in subcommittee on that issue and then bring it back to the table.
Just another note as far as surveys. So you have the police department survey, and the city of Burbank also does their surveys also. So just be mindful of that.
Commissioner Elman?
In today's world, you do anything, and right away they send you a survey. I can't tell you, especially with the medical system today, anytime you see your doctor, right away you get a survey back. So one of the things is, we keep on trying to reach out to the public, but the problem is this: we give the public an opportunity to speak before us or call in, and except for one speaker tonight, we've had 0 in 3 months. So I think before we start adding ways to, for the public, we got to figure out what's wrong with the system we have right now. Because I think there's a disconnect going on right now between the public and, whatever, our commission or the tools that we give them to communicate with. But the numbers don't lie. People are not participating in these meetings, and before we go off in new directions, maybe we got to look at ourselves or look at the system or whatever and figure out what is the path forward.
That one got some hands there.
I would love to comment on that, and the reason why I say that, and the reason why I want to definitely interject is, with all due respect, no one's going to take interest in you if you don't take interest in them. And that's just a general rule of thumb. We use that in marketing, we use it all throughout the community, and if you don't put yourself out there to really engage in the community, I can tell you right now, the reason why people don't know the Burbank Police Commission exists is because of the lack of engagement on the Burbank Police Commissioners, and nothing to the brand new commissioners, but the commissioners of the past. And I think what needs to happen is we need to realize that it starts with us. We have to go out there and we have to make those conversations happen. We have to talk to the different departments in the PD and to try to figure out how that functions. Also, go out to the other community and talk to different organizations to know that a Burbank Police Commission is here. So I get the comment all the time when they're like, what do you do? What commission are you on? Talking about the Burbank Police Commission, they're like, oh, we didn't know that even existed. So it's like, the onus is on us. It has to start with us. So as much as we want people to show up, we have to show up as well, and that's the argument I would make.
I'll have to disagree with you. Because when you do go to the events, it's the same faces quite often. And, we're living in a time where people are very busy and, things are more complicated, I think, than they used to be. But I just think that we got to reach out in a way that works. I'm thinking that in the, most of these surveys, what is it, 104,000 people live in the city, and maybe about 6,000 or 7,000, participate in a survey, if that much. And I'm just thinking that, whatever tools we're using, the numbers don't lie, and I don't think things are working effectively. So I just think if you want to go ahead and create another survey, unless it's really effective, I don't see the point.
Could I kick in here for a moment? There's something that I don't think our board has participated in yet. Each year they have the National Night Out, which is I don't know if you're familiar with it, but the police and the commission members go out to different neighborhoods, and they have like neighborhood parties or whatever is going for the holiday, and it's a perfect spot to informally discuss with people what their concerns are about. And this it's not a, fill out a form kind of survey, but you're hearing what people are thinking. And that way we could respond to that later. I think that's something, what's it, August 2nd? Yeah. Comes up. I think it'll be something very useful for our commissioners to use as direction. Yeah, you get information. You have to participate. You have to go out and you have to ask and wander around a little bit, and you might get a free taco or something for the evening. But you get a lot of information that you don't normally. Somebody wouldn't come down and speak to the dais about.
I have a couple of thoughts to add on to that. I actually think, all of the different opinions on here are not diametrically opposed to each other. There are points on quantitative responses, and then there are points on qualitative responses. I think National Night Out, when you're speaking with people directly, when you want to reach out to people, those are absolutely qualitative, and you get a lot more depth, and you get a lot more nuance, and that's extremely important. I will say, yes, we definitely have a smaller percentage of the community responding to the biannual survey, but 6,000 is not insignificant when you think about survey numbers, and you can kind of use that as a quantitative way to direct how the community moves forward. So I don't think that we've all agreed to just adding on another survey just because we want to add on another survey. I think that's something to discuss. But one question here is, how do we get, better quantitative information to back up and support some of the qualitative ideas that we're getting from the community? And obviously, there's work to be done by the commission members, by, everybody involved to get more of both, but they work in tandem with each other, and they're not necessarily, it's one or the other.
I appreciate that, and you're right. We've got to draw we've got to increase the interest, and we have the ability to do that. The good news is that we've done a lot of that this year. In looking at in our last meeting when we were talking about all the topics that we had addressed, those were not topics that just came up because we had a wild hair. There was many of them were tied to issues going on in the community at the time. Conversations that many of us are having, both with the community and with members of the department as well. I'm thinking about in the last 6 months, even as late as today, I've had a half a dozen conversations with different people around domestic violence as it relates to law enforcement in Burbank. So that's information that's coming in from the community. The work that Commissioner Hakobian's been doing around street racing has actually created a groundswell that now has public figures that are getting involved in a campaign in conjunction with not just BPD, but also with Water and Power and with community organizations. So there is a lot that is going on, and I want to lift that up. Just because people aren't, and we do have a guest here tonight, which we appreciate having here, but there are people that are providing input in person, outside of the meetings, via email, telephone calls. So it is happening. We can lean into that and draw more, but I would not suggest that we're not getting that feedback from the community right now. It's actually quite the opposite, at least in my experience.
I appreciate that, and just to add to what so many commissioners are saying, Commissioner Chapman, there's events happening in Burbank all the time, and majority of them are free. You just have to show up, say hello, address who you are, and have conversations. People are interested. When you say you're a Burbank Police Commissioner, everyone wants to know what that is, what's your role, what you do. Our job is to be community liaisons, so the only way to be a community liaison is to get out in the community, and that's what really works. And I really appreciate what Commissioner Coombs was saying, because he's worked on a lot of projects with me, and for me, it's created interest. People have really taken notice. They're like, oh, the Burbank Police Commission is getting involved in doing this and doing that. And for me, I own a marketing company in the city of Burbank. It's called Media City Design. And my job is to sell ideas. And the way you sell an idea is you have to figure out what the market is, what they're interested in, and then you have to appeal to them. And that's you getting involved in figuring out what the conversations are about, what's important, what's not important, and then kind of reporting back. And then also creatively, like, how can we get different organizations together to work together on a common purpose? So there's a lot that can be done, but I mean, I will stand by this, it starts with us. It starts getting out there, having those conversations, like Commissioner Coon said, and just, being interested and, getting people interested.
So, a fine job, off topic, okay? So I'm getting scolded. So, so we're going to go to Commissioner Coombs, what you brought up, so we can stay on topic. And you can agendize all of this. This is great dialogue, but we need to stay on topic, okay? Thank you.
Sure. So the agenda topic is the creation of a calendar, which we'd agreed to have as discussion here. So back to the calendar itself, I'd read through a suggestion that I'd made based on the information that's been provided to us by Burbank Police Department and some issues that have come up in the community that have come to our attention. First question, I guess, would be, do we want to establish an annual calendar? It seems like that's something, Chair, that we may want to take a vote on, whether we, and this would be, so I guess I'm motioning that we create an annual calendar to identify general topics that we want to address throughout the year with the ability to be able to agendize and add additional items as needed at each meeting.
Do we have a second?
I will second the motion.
Excellent.
That was already established at your last meeting.
Oh, it was?
You did motion it, and it was approved at the last meeting.
Oh.
This is the one to get the elements for.
Okay, I thought this was to have a discussion as to whether we should do that. Okay. Oh.
This is for the elements.
Okay. Okay.
Perfect.
So I will, I'll go ahead and suggest, based on our conversation so far, I'd like to suggest I'm going to go ahead and motion that we establish a calendar based on the items that I'd previously identified, with adding a couple of things in, and I can go through those month by month relatively quickly, if that's okay?
Okay.
So it's a long agenda, it's a long motion item, if that's okay.
I would like to add that we do have a process to add to each month's calendar, that if we do have a suggestion, there is a path.
Right, we do have that, I'm actually in the middle of a motion, and we do have that already through the motion process. That's built into what we do. So I'd like to motion that we start off with, switch things up a little bit. I'd like to suggest that we switch some things around and that July be focused on traffic safety. August be focused on school safety. September, for this year, be focused on the joint meeting with the City Council and OIR. October,
Can I interrupt you just?
Sure.
The September meeting with that subject, should that be a discussion that's in July?
we're actually getting it's the joint meeting with the council in September with the presentation by OIR.
Okay.
What's the date on that, for that meeting?
Be the third Wednesday of the month.
Actually, it's Tuesday.
Oh, you're right, Tuesday of the month. Actually, that's a good question.
No. So what date are you asking for?
The
OIR joint
joint
session?
meeting.
Yeah.
It's
In
going to be
September.
September 27th, which is a Tuesday. So the Wednesday prior to that week would be your normally scheduled meeting, but we're going to push it to the 27th.
Great. Okay.
So when, maybe I'd like a little clarification before we
Sure.
go too far. So when we make up this calendar, we're knowing when these are activities that are related to the police department, but we would be looking at them prior to that time when it actually happens, like the month or two before.
To prepare.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. You got it. Not in a commission meeting, though, independently in preparation for that commission meeting.
Okay.
Is that provide clarification? So, for example, just to step aside from this for a moment, for example, I had a conversation with Sergeant Feckety around the calendar that Burbank currently uses prior to today's meeting, but today is the day that we're actually having the discussion about the calendar. Does that help clarify?
All right. So what are we looking for? Discussion, presentation prior to the event, or prior to the time period?
Presentation the day of the event, we will most likely, during our motion process, dive in with some more specific clarification for what we're asking for. So we can still clarify what it is specifically that we're looking for from the department or from the community, or that we're preparing ourselves prior to the meeting, but we can't actually have the discussion prior to the meeting without having it agendized first.
All right,
So we'll still use the motion process.
all right.
How's that work?
I think it sounds good.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. So-
I'm sorry to interrupt.
No,
you.
it's okay, it's okay. So continuing, October, pedestrian safety. November, domestic violence and gang activity, 2 separate topics. December, dark. January, DUI enforcement. February, homeless engagement. March, equity in hiring and advancement. April, the Communications Center. May, mental health in the department and the community. And June, a year-end review. So the motion is to enter into that general calendar, and then we would be clarifying specific topics within that prior to that meeting using the motion process.
Just to be sure, Sherry, are you got everything, or do you have a copy of that? It's all on YouTube. Okay. You're good. Thank you.
I do have a question, just in terms of, once we put it just in a general framework, then we can always, like, if you think of something else for February, for instance, then we can just suggest that at
Yes.
some other point.
We'll,
Okay.
we'll still use the motion process to agendize items.
Okay. Thank you.
So we need a
Need a second.
second here, I think.
I have a quick potential amendment. Just for this year, I like the schedule month by month for all future years, but for this year, I would like to motion to move school safety up to July, just because that is a very pressing issue that I know a lot of members of our community are, concerned about, and then maybe switch school safety and traffic safety for the year of 2022, and then we can move forward as is.
Okay. That makes sense. So we're switching school safety and traffic safety.
And otherwise, I would second that if
Great.
everybody's fine.
We have a second?
We do?
Good. Okay. Lou?
Yes.
Yeah. And can we have a vote on that? Would you take, a hand vote is okay?
All in favor?
Okay. Unanimous? Is there any discussion, further discussion?
Please, no.
Okay. Good. Then we will hopefully see that
Excellent,
next meeting, yeah.
excellent.
I think that the chief is
Chief's
in,
presentation.
he's in action. Okey-doke.
Good evening, Commissioners. I think it's more appropriate to stand in front of you when I present
It
out.
works great.
So these are going to be general announcements, but also kind of a footnote here is that items of note related to the department and the commission. So let me start with the calendar, and so this is notable for the police department, but also for the police commission. And I'll start with July 19th. So that's going to be a Tuesday. That's going to be a joint session with the Burbank Unified School District. So there'll be a police component associated with that. There's an expectation that we will present. So I would encourage your attentiveness moving forward. And then on My attorney's buzzing me here, okay. On July 26th, and again, I thank the commission for their understanding. City manager had asked if we could make a switch for the OIR presentation because on July 26th, there is going to be a report out by police department, city attorney, and CDD, a collaborative report on the number of gun stores in Burbank, and that will probably be an extended council session. There's a lot of legwork that's being done, research to provide that presentation to council. So then we're going to fast forward to September 27th, and that's the date that I discussed, where we'll have the joint session with City Council and OIR. So I'm going to provide a little bit of a tutorial for you as far as a protocol so that you understand the expectations of how you're going to manage yourself during that. We subordinate to the City Council. So it goes City Council, City Manager, Assistant City Manager, department heads, and then you have your commissions. So we'll be in a subordinate role. We understand that. OIR is contracted by the City Attorney's Office. So actually the City Attorney has the lead on that presentation. We will have our responses completed for that report prior to that session so that OIR can respond to our responses. For the most part, we've done our preliminary, and there how many, 21, how many? 21 recommendations. For the most part, we're in agreement and going to be in, not compliance, but we'll move forward with them. A couple of them, we are doing some point counterpoint, so the 21 may go down to 19 or go to 23. So the expectation I would provide for you is that you're probably looking at one spokesperson for the commission, and be prepared for that. So there may be some thought put into that before the commission. And the other footnote to that is that you will have your elections in August. So in September, you could have a sea change or it could be the same. So just as a protocol, this will be City Councilman Schultz's first go at a joint session with the OIR, but you can also outreach to City Council member Bob Frutos, because he has been through this a handful of times, and if I'm misspeaking, let me know. But I just want you to be prepared so it looks like we know what we're doing when we're presenting, okay? So,
Chief?
yes.
May I ask a question? Is a copy of the report available to the commissioners prior to that meeting?
It should be. So I don't know, again, is that we're in a subordinate role. It goes to, the next meeting will be with the city manager, city attorney, and the police department. I will ask that question when I can kick out that report. So it may be the night of, because I'm not sure what the city council's opinion is going to be as far as it being public. Again, we're in a subordinate role. It goes to the electeds first. They have time to review, to opine, and will be prepared on that night. So, no, okay, there you go. Thank you, Ms. Nakamura picked me up. So at least the Friday before, it'll have to be published for everybody.
Okay.
So whatever date that is, 22nd, 21st. So, reporting out on some of the August Police Commission is going to be mandated training. So what's significant about this, and that's why we couldn't move August for OIR, is that the Police Commission is first up for this training. So this is training for all boards and commissions. The city manager's office wanted the Police Commission to be the first to be introduced to this training for team building and for how to work as a commission and how to prioritize and a lot of stuff that you're doing. But we're kind of the gold standard, so we get to go first, and they're going to use the police commission as the benchmark moving forward for the other commissions. So that was kind of a big deal for us in the police commission because we're going first. So that's August is going to be a full plate plus your elections. The theme that night may be moved depending on how long it goes. So as far as other calendared events, next Friday, a week from Friday, we have 2 recruits graduating from the LA County Sheriff's Department, which is a big, big deal. You're invited to the graduation. It's going to be 1,000 hours at the LASD Academy North. I'll be attending, and we have 2 recruits that'll be graduating. On a very much lighter note, we have an ice cream social at Sliders on July 9th. So this will be my maiden voyage for an ice cream social as a police chief, police officer. So I don't know what to expect, but I'm looking forward because I like Sliders, and I have no idea what we're looking at, but that'll be from 6 to 9 p.m. Do you have any more on that? Okay, other than they have some really good stuff there. Chair Chapman talked about National Night Out, which is going to be August 2nd. That's going to be at Johnny Carson Park. So you'll remember that format. Typically, you're assigned, paired up with folks from the command staff or the cops bureau. We start at the park, and then we hit about 2 or 3 venues, community venues, and have an opportunity to engage with the community. I look forward to that night, and typically it's good time. And last year, you can't go with me again because bad things happened.
We don't talk about that.
Yeah, we had a long walk. My car battery went dead. Yeah. What's that? Yes, you can. Yeah. She can be pleasant. Yeah. And date for the August Police Commission is August 17th. So, Ms. Nakamura, did I miss anything? Okay, I didn't talk too fast? Okay. And that's all I have to report out, folks. So, thank you.
Good. Thank you, sir. We have some items for future meetings. Do we want to focus on one particular one for next month? We have the,
Yes, pending our discussion earlier, I'd like to make the motion to introduce an agenda item for school safety and BPD's training and processes and procedures relating to school safety.
I'm sorry, could you say that a little louder?
School safety and BPD's training, procedures, and processes as it relates to school safety.
All right.
I'll second.
So get a second. And we take a
Discussion?
Commissioner Coombs. Any comments? We vote, yeah? Yeah, it looks like it's pretty unanimous.
So that will be a long presentation because it will include traffic in that. So it'll probably be 2 or 3 folks that will present, so it's comprehensive, and I actually think it's very timely. I'm just going to remind folks to consider wellness because July is an open month, and you may have an interest in that.
Good. For clarification, Chief, we were just talking about doing school safety, including traffic in July, but the wellness, you're recommending we talk about wellness then as well, or?
So as far as agendized item,
Right.
So with school safety and the traffic component associated with school.
Right.
So separate and apart from the entire city traffic, and for an agendized contemporary item that has a nexus to what you were talking about earlier, I would look at or ask about what officer wellness programs
Got it.
are in place, or what are you looking at? What does the future look like? Because sadly, there is a horrible number out there as officer-related suicides. And I'll tell you right now, I don't want to be dour about this, but there will be suicides after Uvalde, guaranteed. So, but that's entirely up to you.
So with that, Chair Chapman, I'd like to go ahead and motion that we talk about the Burbank Police Department's wellness program at the next meeting as well and get a presentation from the department on that.
Do we have a second there? Or do we need one? It's just kind of an inclusion.
Commissioner Jacobian.
I'm sorry. Commissioner Ramick has seconded, yeah. Okay.
Not a question. I have another thing that I want to talk about on the traffic, a little sidelight. Yep.
We have a motion, and we have a vote to go. Can we do this by hand as well? Okay. All those in favor? Unanimous? Thank you. Commissioner Elman.
August 3rd is the one-year anniversary of the horrific accident on Glen Oaks and Andover. I think we should have a report on what's happened in the last year and in terms of traffic safety. I don't know if it could be merged with the school stuff, but, you know, but it is, you know, August, it is the one-year anniversary, and I think we should have at least a status of, you know, where we've been, where we're at, and where we're going.
Could we include that in our traffic safety?
We could, and thank you, Commissioner Melman, for remembering that, because if you remember, that was the night after National Night Out. So that was a tough 24 hours. But absolutely. As far as your agenda right now, that's a full plate.
Yeah.
So, but we'll make it happen.
Excellent. Thank you, sir. All right. Then I think we're done for this evening. We are adjourned until Wednesday, July the 20th at 6 p.m. Thank you.